having that communication both ways, um, being open is really important, which actually is the last thing I really wanted to get at is just for a good implementation, communication processes is like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And that's communication within the analytics team and the folks building the data layer, like I just talked about, but also it's so key and important to have communication between the analytics folks and the product folks, and between analytics and obviously marketing, which is I think the more obvious one, um, and better yet, communication between analytics and leadership. Like not just handing them off the dashboard because they want to check the box that says that they have analytics in place and they want to double check over our shoulders that things are going right, but to actually say, hey, you guys are making decisions about what's happening next quarter. We have data that might help you make those decisions. Um, can we maybe set up some sort of actual process, relationship, cadence, whatever, um, that makes it so the data can be more useful.
Yeah. No, it's such a strong point, and I agree. Analytics, the role of analytics implementer is kind of like a product manager. We have so many different people that we need to work together with and make sure that we're aligning all of these pieces, that communication and how we design those things is oftentimes way more complicated, and way more important than the JavaScript or the actual
Mm-hmm.
wiring data point from A to B. But it often gets overlooked, and I'm glad you brought up the executive leadership function. That's one I learned the hard way when I was client side, brand new. I wanted to get in right away and just let's just collect data and do stuff, and was really happy and excited about doing it. And I remember the first time that I sat down with our leadership team to start talking about some of the new insights that we're going to be able to report on. Less than 5 minutes into the meeting, I think the CEO said something like, "But Jason, that's not how we look at this data." You made a lot of assumptions that just don't align with how we view the data for our business, and we have to go back and redo that now. And I'm like, I felt stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I felt, but it was a good lesson. It's like, okay, well, I don't know everything about how this business works and how they think about the data. And then when you get to be like a public company, there's certain ways they look at data because they, have quarterly earnings calls and they need consistency in how these numbers are reported. And so, there's a lot that can be learned and that we need to think about from well, how does the business actually look at this data? Because we probably have some ideas. The product manager probably has some ideas. I'm sure the dev team has some different ideas. But if we're talking about these numbers at a company level, and especially if we're exposing numbers externally to shareholders or others, it's important that we're doing it in such a way that aligns with how the company views the data that we're collecting and presenting to them.
Man, I'm so jaded because I hear that and I just think I'd just be excited to get them using the data, much less find out how they are using the data. But I mean, it ultimately comes down to the same thing, though, of having that communication and making sure they know what they have available to them. Um, and then you can know how they want to use it.
Yeah. One of the other points that you brought up that I think is such a good exercise is to sit down with your dev teams, especially if you can identify individuals. And I guarantee you every company has at least one, because doing this for 20 years, I haven't found a company yet that doesn't have a dev that is hyper interested in analytics.
Hmm.
And so, just spending a little bit of time saying, hey, I know I'm throwing all these tickets over the wall to ask you to do X, Y, and Z. Do you have 30 minutes? We can sit down. I'd love to show you what we're collecting it, how we're collecting it. Not only that, I want to show you how the business is using it to report on, how people are using our mobile app or our website. And it creates such a huge value opportunity within the business to do that. Not only do you strengthen that relationship and now you have a really strong advocate in the development function, but oftentimes if you're open to it, they can be providing incredible feedback to you. And I, again, back on the client side, I had that happen where the devs would come to me and said, hey, I know you're asking for it like X, but kind of X plus one plus, like, if we just tweak it a little bit, it's going to be so much better for what I think is there, is being asked. Does that make sense? Or